become a better listener from the leadership level. The number one missed skill in America today is the ability to listen. And not listen to respond, but listen to learn.
KEPX presents a Levene Media production. This is Dignity Leadership with hosts Brooke Coleman and Rich Levene.
So we're live from Oasis Texas Brewing in Austin, Texas. We're getting some selfies in. We already got the guests. So usually we do an intro. We talk for a couple minutes and get to know each other. Then we introduce our guests. So today's going to be a little different, but we got a lot of fun stuff in store for this episode. So personal journey while these guys are snapping pictures. So if you're on YouTube watching this, the picture might be a little different. Just make sure that you understand that we're live. We're using a cell phone. But today we're going to talk about my favorite subject in the whole wide world.
Ooh, Rich.
We're going to talk about me, but we're not going to dominate the whole show. So I wrote a book.
Yes, you did.
I did write a book. But the two gentlemen.
Hey, good job. Rich Levene.
So the two gentlemen we have on our show today, Brooke, we got Michael Ray Newman sitting right next to you, to your immediate right. And next to Michael Ray is Edwin Britt.
One and only.
So I met these gentlemen I met you a long time ago. You were a mentor to me. And then I met Edwin when you came in to help me. We'll get into that story. But I want to share with everybody that Edwin and Michael are the number one motivation duo in America. Edwin and Michael Ray invite you to discover how to activate the mindset of a champion, which is their own course that they've developed, and how to create a life by design towards significance. It's a journey, not a destination. So where do we get some life by design swag?
Edge Global Inc.
Edge Global Inc.
Yes.
.net.
Absolutely.
Edge Global Inc.
Catch us up on the Facebook page under Edge Global. Hit that up.
We can do it.
Everybody needs some of that swag. All of you guys, the audience, everybody needs some swag.
We need to get them some swag.
You get a car. You get a car. You get a car.
Yes. All right, so I want to jump in with, I'm going to talk about Edwin for a minute. And I met Edwin at a time in my life when I needed some leadership help. And Michael and I had a couple of conversations. And Michael had done a lot of things for me. He had actually shown me how to be a leader. He didn't tell me how to be a leader. And then he brought Edwin in with him. He said, "Oh, you got to meet this guy, Edwin." I'm like, "Dude, I don't want anybody else. I want you to help me." He's like, No, you got to meet Edwin. So then Edwin, you remember that day you came out to Austin? We had all the employees?
Absolutely, man. And, you made a real positive impression right away because we never arrive. You can take these life experiences, but yeah, Rich, it was burned in my mind there, and it's been a real cool thing since then.
And I met you when we were talking about, so you came to help us, and we did just a small portion of your course that you were building at the time, Mindset of a Champion. And then you introduced me to Attitude of Gratitude. So share with everybody where Attitude of Gratitude comes from. Where did you guys learn this?
Well, I was very fortunate to work directly with the gentleman that really, I think it was probably the foremost motivational speaker of all time, Mr. Zig Ziglar from right here in Texas, Dallas, Texas. Yep. And he essentially taught me that, but more than anything, Rich, and you alluded to it with Michael, he demonstrated it. It's one thing to say it's important, it's another thing to live it. But what you send out is what you get back. So when you get an opportunity, of all of our attitudes, gratitude is the healthiest of all of our attitudes. So it's a marvelous place to start.
Yeah, you guys have changed the way I look at life and start coming to it with that attitude of gratitude and being able to see what I have instead of what I don't have. And it's changed my mindset. I mean, Brooke, you've known me for a little while, but you met me after I met these gentlemen.
It's true. I know you probably, out of the three of us, a little bit longer. I just met you guys. Awesome. I mean, we're just needing, and just kind of that empathy and that energy that you guys have. You can feel it. You can feel it. So I'm liking it. I'm liking it so far. I'm excited to hear what we're going to learn today on the podcast.
So here's what we're going to learn. So we did a little introduction on Edwin. I'm going to talk about Michael for a second. So I met Michael in my office because I was in the ivory tower. I was important. I was a boss. And yes, I was a jerk. That's my.
I was a boss. I was a jerk. Those came together.
Hey, we'll just say it. I was an a-hole. My wife and kids are probably going to say, well, the kids all ducked out. They're probably upstairs getting a beer. But anyway, so Michael taught me by actions. And he showed me what the difference was between management and leadership.
Nice.
And then Michael and I have had quite a few conversations. And I wrote a little section in my book about a conversation that you had. And it's not you and I talking back and forth, but it's about this thing that you taught me called the Peter Principle.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So, hey, Kevin, you let me know when you got it ready. We're going to play a snippet from my book. Those who possess leadership potential will demonstrate it through their actions. This is not to be confused with outcomes. Simply being able to manufacture widgets, sell products, or invent new ways of doing things does not imply that you have the ability to act as a leader. Nonetheless, this occurs on a daily basis. High achievers are promoted to positions in which they are expected to lead, even though they have never demonstrated leadership qualities or values. The most relevant example I can think of is the promotion of top performers to management positions. The vast majority of business organizations are structured in such a way that they can track and measure productivity, sales, profits, and other numerical outcomes. After all, it is much easier to assess an employee's contribution to the company's bottom line when there are quantifiable numbers available. The end result of this, however, is the promotion of an employee to manager, even though that employee is not qualified to be a leader 9 times out of 10. All right. So that comes from the book. I don't even remember which chapter it is.
Sounds good, man. You sound good, dude. Okay, you have it. You've launched it. This is the pre-launch.
This is a pre-launch
This
party.
thing's ready to drop, and he has already got. This is totally rich, man. I'm just gonna. I know we're about to shoot the wheels off this thing, but
Shoot
I'm
it
gonna
off.
tell you something. Rich. He's already got the book done, the cover done, launched it, and the audio version.
You've done the
it's in the
audio.
can, ready to go,
Ready
and
to print. It's
yeah,
hot.
man. It's
Yeah.
gonna be so hot.
We're just waiting to pass a couple mile markers. I can't control the publisher. The publisher's a little bigger than I am. There's some of those bosses sitting up there that are worried about their metrics and their processes. And here I'm down. I just want to get my book out. But the anticipation, the book will be out in June, and I'm going to leave it at June for right now, so that gives us 4 weeks to get it out. There is one particular date it's going to come out after. That's just because I signed a non-compete, and I wouldn't tell anybody that I'd give away their trade secrets. I don't give away any trade secrets in the book. We talk 100% about my journey of how I was a manager, how I used what we talked about in there. I promoted people, Michael, you were around me. I promoted people that were good at processes, that were good at making money. And you guys came in, and we went through that mindset of a champion. Tell us a little bit about that one, either Edwin or Michael, on the day we went through and what you guys did for us.
Well, we were being approached by organizations all over the country, and typically what it sounds like, guys, is someone says, hey, we need sales training, or we need leadership training, or if operations could just get their act together and learn to appreciate sales and back and forth. And so Michael and I started hearing that, and one day we were on the road, and we started talking about it, and we said, what if we could bring everyone together in a collaborative way and sit them in the same room and give them a hybrid of sales and leadership and communication, and let them know that, as Michael says so well, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. And we started developing it from that, and really our 35 years plus of personal experiences and journey. And what's happened has been transformational in nature all over the nation. Companies have come together now in a way, people have been ignited in a manner that transformed, I guess, that they never thought was possible. So that would be probably in a short essence what it was.
And what we found out and what we discovered when we did this, to use one of Edwin's words, is that it's the trust process is what we teach. Mindset of a champion is the program.
Yeah.
We have it virtual. We have a 52-week little class that you can look at on your called just-in-time training. But when we go see somebody, what we discovered is it's not sales training, because the trust process comes it's for sales training.
Yeah.
But what I discovered, because when you guys do this today, no matter what you do in your whole entire life, you educate or validate.
Yeah.
So as we go through this today, you're going to do what? You're going to educate or validate. Educate's pretty cool because you learn something new, right?
True.
It's only hard till you learn it, right?
It's only hard to learn, and I'm still learning.
That's right. But validation is powerful because we validate in 2 different ways. We validate because when somebody's an expert and they're really good at what they do, then they say something that you do that's really positive. You're like, makes you feel a little good, right? These guys got it figured out. I got it. So they're really good about it. We also validate negatively. You're like, I do those negative bad habits, so I probably should change that. So as we go through this program, and this is what we tell everyone, you got to make it about you. As you listen to y'all's podcast, make it about you. Because so many times, it's better to what? Give then
Receive.
Everybody knows that because it's been beat into us. But what you don't take time, and I think we talked about self-care yesterday a little bit.
Yeah, we did.
It's so important to take the time for this
Yeah.
and make it about you. And when we do that, we can work on parallel tracks, which you're able to help other people when you help yourself first. So what we found was it's not sales training, it's life training. Because when you can sit down and think, plan, and prepare and really relate to someone and have that light bulb moment, uncover need, and both of you guys are in the same place, you can offer a real solution or sell them something. And we found out operationally, pressure was way high. Sales pressure was way high. Leadership pressure was way high. And like Edwin said, we were pointing fingers at everybody. If they get their act together, salespeople are hammering us. Leadership doesn't care. Well, when everybody gets on the same page in the trust process, which is what I just went through with you guys, you can do the last T, which is take massive action together. And it creates a collaborative approach. And when that happens, pressure goes down, confidence goes up,
Absolutely.
and we turn the burn and get something done, right? Come on.
So let's talk about the trust process, because when you came in and did it, you went through it. So let's go through it real quick. T stands for
Think, plan, and prepare.
what is the R?
And practice.
And practice, yes. What does the R stand for?
Stands for relating, and we teach people how to relate in 4 specific areas about the person, the organization, the goals, what do you want to accomplish. But more importantly, the big miss is what obstacles are preventing you from getting where you want to go. You know, Oliver Wendell Holmes said, the great tragedy of life isn't the sudden loss of life, while tragic. It's that most of us go to our grave with our best music still inside us, yet unplayed.
Yep.
All right. When you do that,
Take a shot.
go ahead. You activate the next step. You meet people where they are, and they start telling you the truth, and that's called uncovering the need. Oftentimes, as leaders, as salespeople, as parents, we try to solve the problem. In other words, we present a solution before we truly understand, and the other person understands what the real need is. When you can identify that, then you do not introduce things that aren't relevant to the specific need. When you help people really understand what they want to accomplish and they know you really have their best interest, selling and leadership is about other people. It's something you do with
You're
and
not
for
jumping
someone
ahead.
else.
You're not anticipating. And that's what
Exactly.
happens all the time, isn't it? Yeah.
It's what I do every day.
Very good.
Yeah, it's a learned discipline. For
It
sure.
is. It's definitely. But you just touched on something that I did write about in the book, and that is there's 2 types of parents, basically. And you can translate this into bosses. And I wrote more along bosses and then tied it back to parenting. I don't want to become a family counselor. That's not my gig. I just want to help bosses quit being jerks and become better leaders. But it's this whole thing of, number one, micromanaging, telling everybody exactly how to do it. Which is really bad. It's negative. But then the other thing is I think you just touched on this, Edwin, is going all the way to the other side and trying to help them with everything and never letting them fail so they never learn. Now you've got 2 extremes. It's like they're both bad, so somehow we've got to meet in the middle. And I think that's what you guys did, because you guys came out and did, I think it was 2 presentations, right? You did 2, and I had you come in for a 3rd one because we were going to build up this whole trust process. So this is just me being my typical self. So we get through one day of doing the T, and then we get through day 2 of doing the R. They come back like the 3rd month, and they walk in. They said, "You ready to go?" And I said, "Yep." And they go, "What are we doing?" I said, "You are sitting over there. You're sitting over there. I got this." And I went through and did a whole team building event that I built on my own with them. I looked at them and said, "How you like now?"
Yeah, that's right. You ought to take over.
But I think what and it just had this aha moment sitting here. And that is your T at the end.
What was S?
Take massive
I missed
action.
S. What was S?
The S is the solution. And once you
Okay.
truly understand the need and a light bulb moment goes off, then you become a tell me more leader or a tell me more servant.
Okay.
And now you're introducing a solution that's relevant, and then that leads to that final T that
That I was talking about?
Rich was speaking about. Take
Senior moment.
massive action, collaborative action.
Okay. So you get to T, and all of a sudden you are ready to go.
Oh, I
and
was-
you felt completely empowered, and you knew that they would champion you on
Yeah.
as well.
So,
Okay.
and we mentioned it in the
Well
beginning
said.
that these guys are motivational,
Right.
and they inspire people,
Yeah.
and they're the number 1 in America right now. I'm gonna try to take it down. No. we're gonna collaborate, all right? But they did. They inspired me to go do stuff, and then I signed up for grad school during that time.
you did.
And you guys
Wow.
came down. And the way this whole thing all
Okay.
started is we had a conversation, and we did an all-employee survey. Talked about it in a couple different podcasts. And it came back from the HR department that the organization I was leading, we had a team of about 125 people at the time, and they said we lacked trust in the organization. Now, don't even get me started on this, because we could go down a rabbit hole all day long about how bad processes and products and profits just disassemble trust.
Right.
So I reached out to HR and I said, hey, so how do I build this? I don't know, you just go build trust. I'm like, really? I'm like, so I asked the consultants, how do you build it? I don't know. So Michael comes in, and I was kind of crying on his shoulder, and I said, hey, how do I build trust? He goes, boy, I've got this for you. And I'm like, what is it? And he throws Mindset of a Champion on my desk, and on the first page is trust. I'm like, all right, we're on to something.
Well, can I ask something about this? Because you have been a guest before, and
Three times.
3 times.
Yep.
You
This
shot
is
me
our
the
third
ghost.
time?
Yeah, there you go.
Right, 3 times. Well, third time's a charm, because now I'm here as
All
well.
right.
And my question is, what stuck with me, and I think you can both speak to this. You said something at that time, and if we're talking about trust here, it was about these middle managers, these guys that are thrust into something because they did a great job at whatever they were doing before, right? They're top achievers. They were making their metrics. They were making their money. And all of a sudden, at the top, they're like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and promote you. You got this. And they are lost. They have no idea what they're doing. They are no longer good at what they were good at before. What happens? That's like a desert land. So how do you empower how do you get that person from being that champion and that wonderful place that they were before back to being that great while they can lead others? Because that doesn't come naturally for so many people.
No, it doesn't. And in fact, the Peter principle came from, he's the best salesman, makes the most money, so obviously he's going to be a great leader. He's going to be a manager. Here you go. Here's the keys, bro. You're going to manage all these people. And he's like, and then he fails. You pull him out of his element, what he's really good at. That's one thing. And he may not be the guy that needs to lead all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because you can read all the books in the world, and at some point, if you don't really want to do it, it really comes from what I think anybody that is aspiring to be that person, that middle management, go to leader, to be the number one, the chief eventually, needs to have what we don't teach, soft skills, which is all about what Edwin does. I mean, and Rich and Edwin both do now, and you guys talk about on your podcast, is how to develop that gratitude, how to be a servant leader, how to have, you can have everything in life you want if you will just give enough other people what they want. And that's what happens when they, especially in the sales piece of it, Edwin talks about this way better than I do, but when someone's a salesperson, pretty aggressive, they have a process, which is what trust is, but then when they get into leadership, there's so many different dynamics, 4 types of personality, which you guys teach, better than anybody. But it's really important to, and this is what's missed, features and benefits, right? You go in and practice how a car runs. It goes 0 to 60 in 2.2 seconds, and you sell that all the time. You sell the features. Yep. But what are the benefits for them? And that's where the big gap is.
Okay. What about features and benefits?
Well, the thing is features and benefits are things we kind of lean into. We tend to be feature driven. We learn product training or things that we specialize in. And so we go sell that. The problem with that is people don't make decisions based on your reasons. They make decisions based on their reasons, driven by their feelings, their motives, and their beliefs. So what we have to do is we have to identify what that means to you. We have to engage them at that level, become a tell me more person, tell me more leader. Then they take action based on those feelings, motives, and beliefs, all built around, and I know you speak about this in the book, Rich, is hope, the foundational quality of all change. When people have a sense of hope, they will take action.
Yeah, if you can't create hope, then you're hopeless. And nobody wants to be hopeless. Yep. Talk about that, I think, in the introduction of the book.
Very good.
But so right now we got to do this quick thing. It's called thank you to Oasis Texas Brewing Company for allowing us to be right here today.
All right,
Give them a round of
Texas.
applause. Thank you for
Thank
Oasis.
you, Oasis.
We're using this room for free, so we appreciate them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate the guests coming in. We've had guests this whole weekend from all over the United States.
Yeah,
It's
it's been
pretty
fun.
awesome.
Yeah, it's been cool. You guys put on a great party, an awesome show. And if you guys haven't seen the view out here,
Yeah,
you
you
got to
gotta
get to Austin, Texas.
Austin,
The
Texas.
Oasis.
And Rich, I came from the beach in North Carolina, so it was really cool to be able to look out and see water here behind us too, man. So
Oh, we
thank
can
you
go.
for
We
that.
can go see that water, man.
Yeah, do you notice how he always gets the beach in there?
Yeah.
Beach,
So
North
hey,
Carolina.
so let's get back on track, and I want to go back to talk about what you were talking about, this Peter principle and sales and profits. And one of the things, and this has come from the Industrial Revolution, and bosses and executives want to do nothing more than measure everything. They want to be able to quantify it. And if they can't see it on a data sheet, on a spreadsheet, or whatever, then they freak out and they don't think they're having any success. And what happens is, so let's take the Navy SEALs, for example.
Okay.
So the Navy SEALs, when they go out and select who's going to be a Navy SEAL, they don't find the best sharpshooter. They don't find the best guy that knows all these little different things on how to get things done. And they actually draw a graph. And they said there's two things we have. We got performance on, let's say, the horizontal axis, and then we got trust on the vertical axis, right? Everybody wants the guy clear up here that's high performer, high trust. But that's a unicorn and they don't exist.
Right.
And then you come over down here and you got the high performer. And what the SEALs said, the Navy SEALs said, that person is toxic on their team and they do not
In
want
a team
them.
environment,
In a
that is
team
crucial
environment.
to know. They are toxic.
I mean, the
They
Navy
will bring
SEALs,
everyone
yeah.
else down.
Yep. So they want that person that's a high trust, lower performer. They'll
Right.
take them all day long. But yet,
Why?
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 Because the way the Navy SEALs say it is, if I can trust you with my life, my wife, and my money, I want you on my team.
That's right.
And that's what it comes down to, is that human compassion, being able to
Right.
know that somebody's there to support you and help you. If you go to a sale, I mean, you and I have had several conversations, Michael, and I even did this, and I'm not going to, unfortunately, I had to put this to work, and I let go of a top performer. So we did when I was working for a big organization, we had to do some restructuring. They kept buying companies, and lo and behold, we were kicking butt in sales because I was good at sales. I knew how to hit those numbers, but I had started learning this stuff. And of course, the bean counters came back and said, "Hey, you've got one too many salespeople on your team." I said, "Okay." And so we all got together, and I pulled my managers in and said, "Hey, we've got to make a really tough decision. What are we going to do?" After listening to me and going through with these guys through the trust process, they came back and we all agreed to let go of the highest performer.
Ouch.
Devastated this individual, absolutely crushed him. But we all agreed to it. We got a lot of flack from the tower. The ivory tower was all over us because we were knocking down numbers. But you know what they did after that? We did a podcast with them, and you were on it. They turned out to be the #1 sales team in the country. One of the people that was a lower performer on our team became the #1 sales lady in the country.
Wow.
Because they all started helping each other. Because they're like, hey, we're here together. And it was an incredible sight to see.
That's true. And that's a great example of what you just talked about with the SEALs.
Made me think about something you say all the time, Michael, which is back your brother's play, right?
Yeah. When it comes to that point, you've got to do it. And you look at each other and say, who's going to pick up the slack?
Yeah.
So where do you want to go from here, Brooke? You got questions?
I mean, I've got a lot of questions.
Let's go. Fire away.
Well, okay. I want to go back to a little bit of what you're doing, Edwin, with Life by Design. So when you come in to an organization and that trust is not there, the team is not healthy, right? So there are metrics to be, and you're right. At the end of the day, data drives what is needed at the top, and we need it. You can't avoid it. It is necessary, and it's going to tell part of the story, but it's not the whole story. So how do you get to that other side? How do you get to I don't know, how do you really get everything up to that same place where the numbers and the data is there, but the real story is in the people that have created it?
Well, you sort of answered a little bit of the question, is the real stories in the people. And so what we have to do is we've got to, become a better listener from the leadership level. The #1 missed skill in America today is the ability to listen. And not listen to respond, but listen to learn.
Okay.
Because the person with the most information ultimately has the most influence. And influence isn't a negative thing if you've got integrity. So what Michael and I do is we spend a lot of time preparing. We do a discovery call. We go through and identify where you feel like you are, what are your strengths. You can't just be about what are your weaknesses. You have to talk about what do you do well.
What are you good at?
Yeah. And then you bring people together, but we've got to start with upsetting their status quo. Once they understand you care about them, not as a unit of production, but as a human being, then they start rising up and they start seeing that they can go be the best version of themselves. And it moves from a cooperative environment to a collaborative environment. And I think Michael and I, Michael can certainly speak to this, the way we blend our own personalities. I don't try to be Michael Ray Newman. I'd be a lousy Michael Ray Newman. There's only one of him, by the way. But we try to lean into our best skills and meet people where they are. And that serves as a catalyst. That's why we start with gratitude. One of the things that we say all the time is to every audience, anywhere I am in America, that one of the first things I say is, how's everybody doing today? And of course they go, I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing all right. And I said, before it's over, in the next 18 seconds, I have them all standing up and going, I'm doing better than good. And really, aren't we? I mean, we live in the greatest country in the world. We live in the, and maybe here in Texas, we're in the greatest state in the country. I'm not sure about that, Rich.
You got nice.
Some people would say it's its own nation, so you have to be careful, right? Texas.
We're still talking about that.
Yeah, definitely talking about.
Yeah,
that.
you know what? Just really quickly on that, how do we get them to buy in?
Yeah.
And create not this dissension, but create a collaborative approach, and it's a
Right.
competitive collaborative approach that they want to. Everybody wants to win.
Right.
And that's what Rich did with his company when he had to fire the high performer, but everybody else
Yeah.
picked up the slack.
Right.
Everybody's paddling, right? Just keep
yeah.
paddling. That's what
Keep
we're talking
paddling.
about. So what we do though, you got to get them to buy in.
Right.
Because
right.
at first everybody's like this.
Well, not just buy in. They're like, this is something that we have to be here for. We're getting paid. I will sit in my chair. I will do whatever I need. So how do you get past that?
Man, it's awesome, and this is what he's so good at
Yeah.
because we walk, and I alluded to it in the beginning, but when we walk in, we have this. Whoops, I got to be here. Oh man, dude,
Right.
we walk in with this attitude of I got to check my phone, the anxiety of being
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
everything, upsetting their whole day, right? But when we find out that we make it about them, when they start making it about them, and then we get the pressure down, and Edwin comes in and talks about we do live in the greatest country in the world, despite all the problems that we've had. There's no doubt about it that we do, and they live in the greatest state, obviously, if we're here in Texas. But where were we, in Texas one time? And you go, man, it's great to be here in Tennessee. And I'm like,
I think I did. I said, it's great to be in East Tennessee, and we were in Texas. I think we were in, it was one of those.
Yeah.
It was not the right state.
yeah, well,
But it happens to the best of
he
us.
had 600 people go, what? And I'm like, oh, that was a little harder to get them back.
That's funny.
After 150 days on the road, every Hilton Garden Inn looks the same. I'm sorry.
Yes, it
And every
does.
Yes.
state looks the same.
Yeah. I've
Yes, it
been
does.
there.
But what we
Been
do
there.
is when we get them to understand that we are there to make it about them. And
Right.
I mean, 9 out of 10 times, Edwin, our feedback that we get is always that I went in for sales training. I went in for leadership training.
Right.
But I came out with life training.
That's
I mean,
huge.
wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, and I think about one particular individual. We were in Cincinnati, Ohio, and its company's existed for over 100 years. And exactly that mentality. People feel like they're missing out because they could be in the
you were
field
right
working.
on.
Yeah.
Exactly, you certainly were. And this gentleman never said, you know, their feeling was he was never going to say a word. He didn't really want to be there. And by the time it was over, and then they brought us back next year and the following year, and they said he has evolved into a totally different person. He speaks now, he cares, he shares his knowledge. And what transformed? Really his attitude. And back to what Rich originally started with, he went from having an attitude of entitlement
Yeah.
to an attitude of gratitude and became a tell me more individual. And it had always been there. It just had to be ignited. And that's what I was so proud of watching what Rich did with his team. I watched those folks as we kept coming back month after month or quarter after quarter. I watched them, the sparkle in their eyes was just
Yeah, it's
different.
different.
And Rich was now leading from here all the way through. He wasn't, I'm the boss applesauce. He was bringing this environment together. And I'm really proud of you for that, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing really quick just to add to that. Before Rich changed his culture of his team, before Rich changed the people in his
Yeah.
organization, he changed himself.
Yeah.
And that's what
That's
I'm
where it
most
had to
proud
start,
of.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it goes back to leadership starts with the self. You got to take care
Mm-hmm.
of yourself. And we got an upcoming podcast that's going to come out in September, but we've already recorded with the beautiful Daniela Moore, who we talked about this yesterday, how you have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah,
she's right up there in the audience.
she's in the crowd today.
She flew in all the way from New Jersey to tell us how to
Yes.
take care of ourselves, which is awesome. So thank you, Danny. But you know, it's this thing, and I discovered going through. I learned my why statement. If you haven't heard it, I'm going to share it. I share it every
Yeah.
podcast pretty
It's
much.
important.
But it's to learn, to grow, to lead, and then create a world of dignity. And I had to identify, and you were there with me, Brooke, and
Yeah.
Becca, you're in the audience. You were there with me the day we were going through this, and we were learning in class together. And we had to tell everybody in the class what we were going to work on. What was our personal growth plan going
Right.
to be? And I wrote down one that I needed to learn how to think critically, and I needed to learn how to write think critically, and listen better were my two.
Right.
And I had no idea when I said those things. I thought they were two completely different things, but they are like this. They are so tied together. And then I discovered my why statement: to learn, to grow, to lead, and create a world of dignity. So I had to go back to the beginning. So in order to do something, I had to become a learner. So I started learning. And when you start learning, what happens? You start growing. And then you've got to go out and you've got to start acting, right? And so you try leading, and then what happens? You make mistakes. Right. Nobody's perfect. You made a mistake. Hey, welcome to East Tennessee. We're right here on Lake, whatever it is in Tennessee. Exactly. But we're not. But anyway, and that happens, and that pulls in the, so you make a mistake. So now you go back, and what does that do? It forces you to learn again. And then you grow, and then you lead. And then you keep going through this. And then I came up with the critical thinking skills, which taught me empathy. And I was sitting, Alicia Miller's in the audience. I was sitting with Alicia one day, and she taught me what empathy was. Yeah. And her definition of empathy, I'm going to get to in a minute. Don't let me forget. Okay. But so with this critical thinking thing is like, okay, I got to start understanding how people are coming to me. Right. When I started doing that, I started listening better because I had to pay attention to them. Right. And what did that create? It created dignity.
It created trust.
It created trust. It did a lot of things. So it kind of brought this whole thing back together. But let's give a shout out to Alicia K Miller, the founder.
Hey, Alicia, thanks for being here. Yeah.
The founder of Empathy Uprise.
Yes.
So she's an entrepreneur. She's been on a podcast with me, 2 of them, I believe. Yeah. But she taught me, and so we were talking. We were in class one day, and I said, "Hey," because she's proud of empathy, and I said, "I think I know what empathy is." You know, I didn't say I think. I said, "I know what empathy is." I said, "It's like being able to walk, a couple miles in your shoes." And she politely, in her way, is like, no, it's not. Yep. It's being able to walk alongside of somebody and try to understand what it may be like to be them, and then ask questions. Wow. Tell me more. And I'm like, that was it. So thank you, Alicia Miller, for that one. So that's where I come up with empathy.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, so I think we're at that mark where we got to give a quick shout out to Oasis Texas Brewery.
Thank you, Oasis Texas Brewery.
So if you can, go upstairs, buy a beer as soon as we're done. Support them because they generously let us. Yeah, they generously let us have this place.
Beautiful Lake Travis in Austin, Texas. Huh?
You can do that.
That's the least we could do, right?
Yeah. I gotta switch gears here and get back to see how we're doing on our. We're good. We got plenty of time here. So in the book, I want to talk about this. We talked about your trust process. You guys came up with what it means to do trust. So I write about 5 values in my book, and I'll see if I can remember them. I've wrote them down so many times. So number 1 I talk about is you got to build trust, and I talk about it from a scientific standpoint, not from your process-driven standpoint, but it's good. No, I talk about ego, or lack thereof. I call it humility, lose the ego, which was influenced to me by another book. You can't have ego. I talk about empathy. I got an entire chapter in there about empathy, and then also another chapter on emotional intelligence, where we talk about what that means. And then there's one more. Now it'll come to me in a minute. But those are the values that I took, and that all came from class when we were sitting there when I had to put that down. And then even before that, I got a couple things in there where I talk about interpersonal skills and intrapersonal skills. Yes. And they're very different. Intrapersonal is what we talked about with Danny, what you just talked about. That's the self-care. That's taking care of me first. Right. And you guys know that. You've just been on a personal journey taking care of yourself lately.
I have, down 25 pounds, feeling pretty good about it.
Bravo,
lots of water, doing some fasting.
Yeah.
Musclehead.
Trying to look a little bit more like my partner, Michael Ray Newman. And that's a tough gig, I tell you.
Yeah, so here's another interesting fact. So you played college basketball.
Football. I played college football.
I thought you played college basketball. But were you on a national title team?
We did. I played quarterback, and we did win the national title.
Bravo.
Elon College.
Yeah. So what's interesting is we've done quite a few of these shows, and my friendships have grown, and they've changed over the years as I've become a leader. And I'm starting to run into people, and there's a lot tied to athletics, to leadership. Michael Ray, you played college football. Mm-hmm. We had the head varsity coach on from local university here in town. It was volleyball. We had her ace hitter.
That's right.
Who holds, I don't know, she amassed over 1,000 kills. But we run into these athletes and what they bring to the table. The self-discipline you guys have to go to practice every day, and then to work with the teams. And then if you transfer that into leadership, I mean.
It all does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think something you hit on really good when you talk about the ego, and you probably say this in the book, which I haven't read yet because you haven't given me.
I haven't given anybody a copy yet.
Okay, all right.
You're
let
going to
y'all
listen
cook
to
it.
the audio
I've heard it.
version.
But I
I'm
will be
pretty sure.
listening to the audio version.
I've heard some of it.
Yeah, Kevin, he's heard the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then here's
Yeah,
how.
Kevin's heard
Hey,
the
hang on,
good,
hold that
bad,
thought.
and ugly.
Here's how Kevin E heard my version of the book. Today we're going to talk about Mark. Today we're here to talk about Mark. And I did that like it took what? It took us 10 minutes to finally get going to get my
It
rhythm.
doesn't.
Oh,
I'm
it
not
was,
trying to throw you under the bus, man.
hard.
Michael Ray knows
is-
what that's like.
It is
dude.
hard work.
I mean, writing a book is extremely difficult, but reading your own book is, I would say, it's tenfold more difficult. Because I kept wanting to critique myself. I kept wanting to rewrite the book. I'm like, why did I say that here? Why didn't that go there? Why was this? I'm like, finally he just looks at me and he goes, you got this.
Bro,
Just-
you just got to go.
Just
All
gotta
right, so
do
let's
it.
go back to athletics.
I was just talking about we learned everything you need to know in athletics.
Yeah.
And before I was 10 years old, I think I learned everything I needed to know in life, and I can prove that and back it up. And what you talk about, things in your book that you have, Edwin and I talked about them with Mindset of a Champion and Life by Design and daily disciplines. And it's just little stories that we use and processes that we implement. And we use KPIs. You've heard of key performance indicators in the bean counting world. Well, we do soft skill KPIs as well.
Oh.
Just like ego. Ego is super important to have. People say, you got to drop your ego. You got to get rid of your ego. Nope. You've been the
It's a
reason.
part of you.
Yeah, the reason you're successful is because of your ego.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
gives you the ability to take the step. We need
Right.
ego.
So how do you use it though in a way?
Well, here's the deal.
Okay.
What keeps that ego in check
Right.
is character.
Yeah.
And the character that you have in you. And you don't, I mean, you've got to go, I mean, sometimes it is before, as we grow up, what we've been given and put and instilled into us by our outside influences. But when you have the character and you know that your integrity and your name is what counts, is what I tell my kids, that's all we can really take with us, right? But with that right there, with a healthy ego, it allows you to succeed. And only the people that have the highest character are
Yeah.
the best leaders.
Oh yeah. Tell me more about these KPIs. I want to hear about this.
Really, that's Michael's baby. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, well, do it. I run my companies exactly like I run my family. All right.
Okay.
I mean, it's just like my mama raised me, my dad raised me.
Yeah.
So, and we have these little stories that I learned growing up, and I just implement them in the business and the people that work for us. It's really important for us to build a culture. I mean, even the way we talk. Come on over here. Mike Dees is here somewhere. I don't know where he is. He's the CEO of my auction
right.
labor company. And I said, come on over here, bro. We got to cuss and discuss this. So we're going to cuss and discuss. That sets up what? What's not always going to be positive.
Right.
He's going to, and I want him to challenge me.
Yep.
So that thing like that, or we got to pull out the white gloves and go do the white glove treatment. I learned that from my mom when she was literally, my mom said, I don't care what you do. In 5th grade, she walked up and she gives me a laundry basket. And he gave me chores to do. But way before that, she said, you have to make your bed every morning. And she's going to expect it. So here's what she would do. She would change the sheets on Sunday evening.
Yep.
She'd make the bed for me. And she'd say, all right, make your bed every morning. So I'd come home Monday evening.
Yep.
I'd get up and go to school. Tuesday morning, my bed wasn't made. I'd leave and go to school. She would remind me, make your bed. Michael Ray, got to make your bed. Okay, I didn't understand. Why do I have to make my bed, dude? I mean, I'm going to sleep in it the next night.
Right.
That was my mentality in 3rd grade. Well, guess what? Wednesday, I didn't make my bed. She never said another word. But she reminded me on Tuesday. Thursday, I didn't make my bed. Friday, I didn't make my bed. Friday, I came home, dropped my backpack, dropped my books, picked up my sleeping bag, picked up my pillow, and I said, I'll see you Sunday because I'm going to go sleep in the treehouse. And Rodney Bryant, my best friend, we were like 2 doors down, but we had a treehouse in the backyard. It was
Nice.
awesome.
Yep.
We had wall-to-wall carpet.
Ooh,
My old parents'
fancy.
shag
Yep.
green carpet. Well, we had wall-to-wall, and we had it on the walls and on the ceiling because we
Ooh.
thought that wall-to-wall.
You took it
I
literally.
can see that.
I
Yes.
thought wall to wall meant on the walls. So we had it. We had an awesome. We had a big extension cord plugged in for heat in the evenings. And she said, "Hey, where you going?" I said, "I'm going to see Rodney Bryant." She said, "No, you're not." I said, "Why not?" She goes, "We didn't make your bed." Throw my backpack down, run to my room, made my bed, picked my backpack. She said, "Where you headed?" I said, "I'm going to go see Rodney Bryant. I'll see you Sunday or when I get hungry." And she goes, "No, you're not. You're not going anywhere. You didn't make your bed."
Oh.
That's a KPI that we run today. Inspect what we expect. We do not micromanage that, but we set the expectations,
Yes.
and then I'll check in, and I'll say, bro, let's do a white glove treatment real quick on this old manager over here. And they know exactly what that means because they
Wow.
know
Yeah.
that story when it comes down to this. So those are just an example of the KPIs. Really quickly, an example of real world. That was a fun story because I'd go back to my room and I'd pout all weekend, say, I'm not going to eat anything. And then she'd roll in, let me get upset. Sunday evening, she'd set me down on my bed, and she'd say, listen, the more you can do around here, and the more you can tell me and show me that you can handle responsibility, I'm going to give you enough rope
Yeah.
until you get yourself all tangled up, then I'm going to pull you back. What you're showing me now that you can't do,
Yep.
make your bed, you're showing me that you can't handle other things I want you to do.
Right.
I'm like, well, it just made sense, right? And that came from a 16-year-old high school dropout that's a hairdresser with my mom. I mean, she got married because of me. Whole another story. Fast forward into real life, we were traveling to all these companies all over the country.
Yeah.
And there was this one guy in there that was a general manager in Cincinnati, Ohio. And his GM came in. I mean, his president, executive vice president came in. Regional vice president is what he was. They sat in his office from 2 in the afternoon until 5 o'clock. This is the make your bed scenario. Check this out. The white glove treatment. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I got
He's
you.
grinning like a Cheshire cat over here right now. But what's the deal? We sat in the office, in the corner office. He flew in. We talked for almost 3 hours in the office, shoot the bull about this and that.
Yep.
And then the president said, hey, man, let's go get some chicken wings and drink a couple beers. Went and got chicken wings, drank a couple beers. The guy flew out, the president flew out the next morning. I'm back at the same location with this general manager. You know what he said? He goes, man, I wish we would have walked property. They had like 40 acres. Because we're doing some really good things here. What a missed opportunity. Because every single general manager that's in that company, when the executive vice president or the regional vice president flies in, they want one of two things. They want to walk property because they're doing good.
Right.
They want to beat their chest and show you, or they're praying that you don't walk. Because if you pull those gloves out, you're going to find some dirt.
Yep.
Two things real quick. Let's say you reprimand in private, you praise in public.
Oh,
And that's
that's
what my
huge.
mom would do. So
Yes.
here's the deal. If he would have walked property, he would have found all these great things that are happening. So then what did you do? Get on the other 78 auctions with the GMs, and on the call you say,
Yep.
let me tell you something. Billy Bob over here in Ohio is kicking some butt, and we're going to change and add our processes, our new KPIs. This is the standard that we're going to coach to. Now, what if he found a bunch of dirt? What would happen? You pull him in his office, you go sit in his chair, and you say, well, this is the best opportunity. Bro, what's going on, man? That's not like you. Well, when you set him in the visitor's chair and he's sitting in your chair, it upset his status quo and lets him know he's in trouble. But when you really listen, oh man, I'm going through divorce, all of a sudden, at the end of that conversation, that person will run through a wall for you.
Yep.
That's the missed opportunity. That's the white glove treatment. That's, I'm going to give you enough rope till you get tangled
Yep,
up. This
yep.
isn't like you, man. You're better than this.
So let's talk about a listening story. You're going to remember this day. I was back in the ivory tower. My favorite little office. I was on the top floor. I had windows. I could see everything.
He was
that's
so
going
proud
on.
of himself, man. I'm going to tell you, I didn't even know Rich. I just got to tell you, he was pretty proud of himself.
We had just closed on buying a company that
you should be,
that
yeah.
you had sold to us.
Yep.
And you walked into my office and you took he used to have this iPad glued to his hand. And he walks in and he takes the iPad
I've heard of
off
this iPad, yes.
and he sets it down on my desk, which I'd never seen him do. I've been in meetings with him, but I'd never talked to him one-on-one. And he sits in my chair and he kind of leans back and he says, "What's going on?" And he doesn't say anything for like 30 seconds. The power of the pause. What did I do?
The
What did I do?
power of the pause.
What did I do? Exactly. So, and he pulls over his iPad, starts writing down some notes. I'm like, "What are you doing?" "Nothing." I said, "You checking emails?" "Nope." I didn't know what he was doing until later, but he writes all these notes down, sets it down, never says anything to me about that day for a long time. Lo and behold, we end up on a trip together, and I remember where we're at. We were in North Carolina.
Hey,
And
good old North Carolina.
We were at a fine dining establishment that sold beers, and we had been walking property all day. And Michael pulls me over and says, "Come on over here. Let's have a beer, just you and I." And we left the other team that we're working with. And you never once told me that I was wrong, that I was talking too much, that I was running processes, that I was a jerk, and all this other stuff. But what you did is you taught me, and you set me down and said, "Hey, you know, if I were sitting where you were at, let's go through some of these things. How do you think you do that?" And you coached me without ever saying, "You're doing it wrong. You're not any good at this. You're an asshole. You stink." But you had the patience of Job from the Bible.
Well,
So
can you tell my mom that?
no, I can't. She's going to listen to this podcast.
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely go to
And if
the
anybody's out there listening, wanting to know where to find the podcast, go to dignity-leadership.com, and then you can click on the About page. There's a podcast, and then we got all the links. You can scan that QR code right there. So as you guys are walking by, pull out your cell phone, scan that QR code, go hit the podcast link, and then subscribe to our podcast show. It's the best thing you can do for us as little independent podcasters.
That's
is if you
right.
go and subscribe
That's
to our
right.
channel, it does boost the algorithm.
It does make a difference.
It does.
Cool.
I'm thinking about something right now, and you and I could not be more different.
Anymore? Yes. We're like oil and water.
And yet, I don't know if we're oil and water because we can merge
We make
in the
rainbows.
same lanes.
You know how when the
That's
oil
right.
and water
That's
mixes,
right.
you get
That's
rainbows?
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
But we do, and we can butt heads as well, right?
Yes.
Because of that.
Yes.
However, you said something earlier, Edwin, about that, and you said, I would never try to be Michael Ray because we do what we do well because we're doing our own thing and when we're out there. And we learned that, like you said, we focus on, we really appreciate what the disc profile can bring to somebody, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, it's a base bone. It's not who you are. It is not, and it's interesting because we're not only extroverts and introverts. We're not red, yellow, green, or blue. We're not dominant only or Little Miss Sunshine, whatever that is. But yeah, those are big parts of who we are. Mm-hmm. And yet those things together, I think, is really what kind of strengthens when you're going in and training people. If I'm only doing it from Little Miss Sunshine's point of view, it does not always work. I need the operational side. That isn't my forte. It really isn't. Now, have I learned as I've managed people, as I've led out, in a huge healthcare corporation? Absolutely. Is it something I would choose to do every day? No, it's not my favorite. Yeah. You that's kind of where you start, right? So those pieces together, though, without both sides, we're not going to be able to really strengthen a team that needs help if I'm only coming in from my point of view. There is something to that teamwork, even when we're coming in together.
It's so well said, and it's why we created the mindset of a champion and trust. Mm-hmm. We build a bridge. You've got to be willing to meet people where they are, and then you got to build a bridge that they feel secure in being able to be vulnerable, to be transparent.
Yeah.
And then, there's some terminology that's been used today. Inspect what you expect. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's not indicative of a dismissive or a debative leader.
Sure.
Absolutely just the opposite. It's a tell me more leader. It says, based on the information, my answer is yes or my answer is no. And the thing in life, oftentimes, it's not that we need to, most of us feel like we've got to better manage our time.
Yes.
And a connectivity to those 2 points is actually, most people are frustrated with that. In fact, in every audience in America, I've always asked, hey, how many people would like to be a better manager of their time? So let's take our live audience here. How many people in the audience would like to be a better manager of their time? Yeah, 100% of the hands just went up. Here's the reality. So, hey, hold your hands up now. How many people know how many seconds are in a day?
I know minutes. I don't know seconds, but I know minutes.
Yeah, you've heard that. You've heard this one before. There's 86,400 seconds in every day, and the reality is you don't manage time. You manage your energy, and you want to create good energy. So connecting that back is you've got to meet people where they are, and that the disc profile is a great example. I know I'm sure you speak to that in your book, Rich, but it allows you to be able to relate to people based on their personality cues, and there's a real strategy involved in that. And the trust process, I believe that Michael and I have evolved and really lived, is one of the best bridges to be able to meet people where they are and create that collaborative effect.
That's neat. That's neat.
I'm going to give you the secret. And I tell everybody this. This is the secret. When Edwin said don't try to be Michael Ray or, don't try to be Edwin, be you.
Yeah.
Take everything you learned. And there's a process. You have a process and a procedure for life. You do.
Yeah.
Whether it's some of it's validating, but some of it I do good, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Learn a process. Yeah. Listen to these guys. They'll pour into you. But y'all ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
You got to use your personality with it.
Yes.
Oh, that's
If
good.
you will be you,
have
and
to
you
be
and lean into a process. My kids know that there's a trust process. When I sit down with them, because we do speak the same vernacular, right? They know cuss and discuss. They know white glove treatment. They know back your brother's play, which is an amazing life story for us, and it turns into the whatever it takes. They know everything that we talk about. They know trust process. When we sit down with a problem, and that's okay if the other person knows it, because you build that bridge quicker, and you meet them where they are faster. And then those light bulbs come on at the same time, and you uncover that need.
Right.
And now guys can take massive action together.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rich.
I just say, Michael, you taught me one thing, and it probably came from you too, Edwin. When you're raising your kids, right? You don't raise your kids to be good kids. You raise your kids to be good adults. So then why don't we transfer this knowledge to leadership? You don't raise your employees to be good employees, right? You raise your employees to be good people, and you build your people so your people will go build your business. It's like, I think sometimes we get the cart in front of the horse.
And that starts so often with our healthy self-esteem.
Yeah.
I wrote 36 words. I'm going to ask the audience to just kind of do this in your mind that really have now been shared all over the world. It's the number one reason that I got to share the stage was Zig Ziglar. And I wrote these because you're going to listen to this podcast. You're going to read Rich's book. You're going to come across wisdom. The question becomes, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it? I heard Zig Ziglar speaking at Charlotte Coliseum in 2002, and I had been listening to Mr. Ziglar since I started my career in 1988. But yet, I'd never heard him speak until that day about significance. I always thought he was talking about just being a better salesperson. And that's why I think I'm so proud of Rich for his book, because he's taken it to a different level, and you're going to benefit when you read it or listen to it. And when it was done, there were 20,000 people in the audience that day. And on my way home, I pulled off the highway. I was listening to the tapes, and I was thinking about being significant, and my wife and I have 3 daughters. I've been married now 28 years. And I was traveling a lot, me on the road, and I thought, I just was, my place was there. I wanted to think about them. They were very young. And I pulled off the road and wrote these words. And so I'm going to call them out. I want you to let them go through your mind as you're on the podcast or here. And just substitute your name. I, Danny, was born to win. God and my family love me. I'm special and valuable and always respectful. And today, I'll do my best with an attitude of gratitude. I wrote those 36 words initially just for my daughters. We just slide under their pillows at night when we did the prayers.
Yeah.
Do you know those 36 words now have traveled literally every continent of the world?
Wow.
People are listening and posting those. And I don't really take the credit so much, but my point, self-esteem is so critically important to what you want to do.
Yeah.
When you believe that, then you can discover your best version of yourself. And it so starts with that. But whatever you feel inspired to take action of, and you do it so well, Michael, and Rich's example, your book, hey, take your best shot. Do it now. Do it now. Do it today.
So one of the things we didn't cover today that I cover
Well said,
on
bro.
very well said, thank you. So one of the things I didn't cover, I always do, is we always start off the podcast by asking what your definition of leadership is. And Michael, we've got yours recorded 3 or 4 times now. You've been on past ones. I don't have yours.
I would love to
Do you
hear
want to
yours,
give us your definition of leadership?
What did I say mine was?
Yeah.
We'll go back. It's episode 8. It came out in July of 2021.
Only Rich would know the exact time on the podcast exactly when you said it as well.
Hey,
I
it's
think
the way my brain works. Let's hear your definition of
Yeah.
I
leadership.
think we've been speaking my definition of leadership since we started today. However, I believe leadership is a place of service. It's a place of meeting people where they are and activating the best qualities inside of them. Back to the Oliver Wendell Holmes quote. If you can activate people's best qualities and feel like you really have, they really have your best interest, you have their best interest in mind, then to me that's the epitome of leadership. It's really biblical leadership.
Yeah,
is
it
what
is.
it is.
Yeah, it's that servant leadership.
Right.
Yeah.
If we work with a lot of business leaders and entrepreneurs, and they're growing their business, and they're trying to wear all these hats, and now they need to scale, and they can't. They're worried about letting go of this hat because what if this guy can't do it? And if somebody's new and they're listening to your podcast, Rich, I would tell them, how do you build this business? We don't. Edwin almost said it earlier. I don't build any of my companies. I don't build the company.
Yeah.
I build people, and those people will build the business.
That's it. That is you were talking about, your life motto and where you're at. Mine is a world where people matter. And it really stems from that. What I was just thinking, we recorded a couple things yesterday and my parents were in the audience, and I don't share this a whole lot. I'm doing my own thing now, out of the house for quite a few years, several decades. But when I'm always asked, who is that person that you admire the most, right? You think of, I always struggle, like, who is that big name that I want to put on there? I always put my dad down. My dad was a pastor.
As it should be.
He's the humblest man I have ever met in my life. He goes low. People walk away from meeting my dad one time, though, and always feel known. They feel important and they feel special. And I think that is true leadership at the end of the day, because they're walking away feeling so special and so known. He's just being him. And if you were to tell him, he would chuckle. I always call him the jolly old postman. He just chuckles. That's what I do. he has no idea what impact he has just having a simple conversation with somebody, and it's because he's making them known.
You just never know. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't. Tom Brady, they just put a thing on the other day, and a little kid asked him at the press conference. He said, "Hey, Mr. Brady, you're my hero. Who's your hero?" And Tom Brady got real still and real quiet, and he said, "My dad." And he started talking about his dad, and he got about 10 seconds into it, and Tom Brady, quarterback champion of the world, lost it in front of this little kid, said, "My dad." And I was like, dang, so that was pretty powerful. All right, so we got a couple minutes left. Here's how we close down every show.
Yep.
We got to do this. So we go through my why statement. We're going to have to go fast today because we're running up against
This
the
has been
clock.
so good.
It has been very good. So thank you to Oasis Texas Brewing Company for having us. Thank you, live studio audience, for being here today.
Thank you, everyone.
I got
It's
a
been
couple
fun.
questions for these guys. So here's the first question. We'll do it popcorn style. I'm going to
Yes.
keep track of
Okay.
the thing. Kevin E., you ready? Because you're always in on this. So
I'm
number
ready.
one,
Monster Millennial.
what did you learn today?
My
Popcorn
takeaway is,
Look
again, we never arrive. We never stop learning.
Yeah.
I learned that you have to keep applying, and you do that by getting to meet more different people, hearing their perspective. And it's really been a privilege for me to be here, Rich, because I got to learn something today. And man, if you can learn something in today and you can meet someone that adds to your journey, well, you've had a blessed day, my friend, and today's been a blessing.
Yeah, and I
Right.
would say the same thing. It's a journey, not a destination. And
But-
what I've seen even today, meeting you and what you've done and how you set up and as far as you've come, I'm really and truly grateful.
This
to
isn't
be
about
here,
me.
dude.
This is about you. What did you learn today?
Appreciate it.
One thing. What
I
did you
just
learn?
told you, man. It's a journey, not a
It's a
destination.
journey.
Yeah.
All right.
And this is just a perfect example of that, man.
Brooke?
I actually I loved the, you go in and you don't start with all the metrics and everything else. You start with the people. It's about the people. And so if you can't start there, you're not going to get to where you want to go. I love that.
Thank you.
Kevin E.?
You ready for me?
Yeah, heck yes.
All right. Hey, first thing, I want to give Rich some credit here. He's beating up on himself about his edit markers in his audiobook. He's still the only guy I've ever known who knocked out an audiobook in 2 sessions. So,
In 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days,
Facts.
people. Yeah.
No
I'm an
cap.
overachiever.
No cap, baby. No
I mean,
cap.
that's, yeah. Second, I want to say that I've heard these 4 people talk a million times. I always learn something new, so I appreciate that. I mean, I think after 5 or 6 years, there's not a story or an anecdote that Michael Ray says I couldn't finish for you. I mean,
Probably.
But, I always learn something new, and I think,
I'm sorry about that.
no, I appreciate it. You were talking about ego, and that's something that,
Ooh,
that you got to work
that's
on
good.
if you want to be an effective
Yep.
leader. You got to keep that in check. I've had a tendency to think that I know the best way to do everything all the time. Like somebody younger says, "Hey, do you know how to put a lower third in a video?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you design it in After Effects. You punch everything in, you export it, you load it into Adobe Premiere with your RAW." And they say, "Well, no, actually, you go to Canva, you punch in 2 words, and you download it." And I got
Staying
I
relevant.
got to be able to listen to those things. Rich is good about that as well.
What'd
To
you
prevent
learn,
myself
Rich?
from becoming a
Yeah.
T-Mobile sidekick in an
Oh,
iPhone.
man.
That's probably even an obsolete reference now. Gen Z is like, what the hell is a T-Mobile sidekick? Anyway, that's mine.
Good stuff.
What'd you learn?
I learned 2 things.
Okay.
As much as I know, I still got a lot more to learn. And my circle of friends is pretty strong.
That's
Amen,
good.
brother.
I'm getting a little
What you
emotional.
put out,
Just talking
what
about
you
Daddy.
put out's what you
Exactly.
get
It's what you put out. And it's about, you
Yeah.
guys talked about this earlier. So one, we're not going to be able to go through the next 2 because we're almost out of time.
Yep.
But so everybody I've had on the show, and I'll ask them about leadership, everybody says the same thing. And they never come up about processes, about spreadsheets, about all this other crap. It's always about action
Yeah.
and about being authentic. And you touched on it today. Leadership is an action. And you can say everything you want about leadership,
Yeah.
but if you don't go out and live it,
Right.
then you're not doing it. And what happens is, this is my favorite thing, is on the trust side. So if you have a leader, let's say you're self-appointed leader, you're the CEO of a company, and you tell everybody that you're going to have a people-first organization,
Yeah.
and then you go read the policy from HR, and everything in there is about how you can't do anything for the people, you don't have a people-first culture. What you have is a structured culture where you're breaking down trust because you're not doing what you say. And that creates a toxic environment. That's where you guys help. And as leaders, I wish there's a lot of leaders. I had a friend send me a clip the other day, and it was from a movie because Arnold Schwarzenegger was in it, and he gets up and says, "You guys, you're a 48% fat blank," and yells at him. He gets up and leaves. The guy goes, "Sit down." He goes, "I ain't sitting down and taking your crap." But that's what we got to get to right now. And as society changes and as we continue to push through on leadership, we're discovering right now how toxic the Industrial Revolution was to everybody. on the different things that's causing processes and pushing all
Great
that stuff.
resignation
And we
that
need to
we're-
start
right.
working, and you guys touched on this, the soft skills that you're teaching. You need, and Alicia, you're teaching it, the empathy, the emotional intelligence, creating hope. That was the one I missed earlier, hope, trust, building all these things up. If you do that, you're going to be so much farther ahead. You won't have to worry about counting your money because it's just going to come in naturally.
Well, let's just say one thing, though, because all those things are so important and they're crucial to being who you are. But it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And you will fail. And every time you fail, you'll actually be better the next time.
Yep.
So you have to carry those things together, right? Absolutely.
You
And there's
gotta-
hope.
Don't be
There's
so hard
always
on
hope.
yourself. You got to
That's
understand
right.
failure is an event. It's not a person.
That's
It's
right.
not who you are. It's something that has happened to you. You've done it. It's an event.
Yep.
And more people came out. You talk about the revolution. More people came out of the Depression in the 30s. More millionaires were made in that time period than ever in the history of our country.
Amazing. So there's hope.
There's hope. All right, well, I want to thank Oasis Texas Brewing Company for allowing us to be here today. Our producer, Kevin Ebling from KEPX.
Monster
All of our studio guests. I want to thank you to our live in-person audience for joining us. I want to thank Michael Ray and Edwin Britt for teaching
you,
me and
Edmund.
helping
Thank
me.
you, Michael.
Everybody have a great day and keep paddling.
Keep paddling.